Well, guys, fantastic to have you on Real Vision.
Really happy to be here.
We're super pumped to be here.
So, do you want to introduce yourselves? Um, Obviously, without doxing yourselves, who you both are in character.
Absolutely. My name is Valet Jones. I'm one of the co-founders of Tally Labs. And Tally Labs is the parent company best known for its character Jenkins the Valet, which I'm sure we will spend quite a lot of time talking about today.
Fantastic.
And I am C Ape, follow ape, Safa for short. And I followed a lot of apes to earn that nickname. And I am also a co-founder at Tally Labs.
Fantastic. So let's go back for the two of you. How the hell did you get into all of this? And how did you come up with this crazy but brilliant idea? So let's go back a bit in time and then we'll talk about a lot of what you're doing and some of the journey you've got to get here, because it's a fascinating story and really interesting.
Safa, I think we need to go back way back in time, yeah?
Go back as far as you want.
It starts in 2000, 2001 probably. We've been best friends since we were little kids. So the company, it's actually named after the restaurant that we had our first, I guess when you were kids, you called them play dates, one of our first play dates at. So we've been best friends pretty much our whole lives and have always looked for stuff to do together. Have had some endeavors together in the past, like in real estate and stuff like that. And so whenever new trends pop up, we are sort of the first person that the other will text, hey, have you seen this? Check this out, whatever. We both sort of discovered NFTs around the same time. I think NBA Top Shot was our first experience in the space, like so many others. Bought some really crappy projects, got rugged a bunch, and then only that, it was only then that we were able to end up discovering BAYC, which was super cool.
So to go stop there a sec, talk me through this NFT journey from both of your perspective. Who saw NFTs and what did you see in them?
Safa saw NFTs. Safa lives on the cutting edge. What got you into Top Shot, Safa?
I had gone through a sports card phase and I thought that it was really cool. And I was fascinated with them as a collectible and be like, oh, and when players play well, it actually, the value of the card goes up and there's, some are more limited than others. And I just thought that was really cool. And then Top Shot felt like that, just but without any of the physical limitations, instant liquidity, 24/7 markets. It was just really awesome. And so we got served NFTs through something that we're both passionate about, which is basketball.
And
for sure.
Were either of you into crypto at all beforehand, or were you just straight NFT natives?
No, we were both into crypto. Didn't discover NFTs until early 2021, but have both been sort of investing in crypto and been sort of fans of the blockchain and excited about use cases for it dating back to 2017 probably. So was fortunate enough to catch that nice run, and then early 2018 was there when the opposite happened.
I think for us, one thing that was hard in 2017 was that I wish that I had found that early NFT community because for us NFTs is where crypto meets culture. And up until late 2020, early 2021, I think for Safa and I both, crypto was very much strictly financial innovation. That's the way we were looking at it. And so we're both fairly creative people, I guess, and really interested in sort of consumer technology and things like that and in brand. And it didn't feel like this crypto at the time for us, for the pockets that we were in, didn't feel like a place where brand and your everyday consumer could necessarily exist. It felt a lot more like, investments or something like that. And then with Top Shot, and particularly in this really micro way, pack opening, all of a sudden was just this switch moment, I think, for us and for so many people, where we were like, wow, the blockchain and making tokens non-fungible can be this fascinating way to bring a whole bunch of people in. And so our minds really started running with all of the different consumer applications of what you could do with crypto.
One of the things that I first saw in it was the fact that in a digital world, you can make abundance of everything. limitless. So the cost of everything goes to zero. I mean, it's consistent across anything that gets digitized. And suddenly blockchain and particularly NFTs stop that. So you can create digital scarcity in individual objects, not just protocols. And that whole thing opens up a whole new world of stuff. But what was bizarre, that it was the art market that took off first. Yeah, it was the top shots, but then art. What did you guys think of the movement of art first? Because it wasn't the obvious thing, right? Because art is a smaller cultural movement than other stuff.
It wasn't the obvious thing, but when you look back, it sort of feels a little obvious. Like art, generally people who like art and artists and art collectors find themselves on the cutting edge and are anytime you see a new medium of art pioneered, whether it's not even a medium like a style. I saw someone on Twitter say this, but when you go from impressionism to realism to cubism to all of these different like mediums, we're now in a new one, and the pioneers of today are going to be, potentially we'll look back at them as the Van Goghs, whatever, all of these really influential people in their own styles. So I think in that sense, it was always like sort of obvious. Never realized it at the time and would have loved to. But when we looked at the market, we saw that like sports collectibles had their day. We saw that one-on-one art had its day, but literature and long form content hadn't. And we thought that was a perfect use case for blockchain. And so that's where we sort of saw our lane into the space, like from a business perspective.
So you see Bored Ape Yacht Club, which unlocks a bunch of ideas. Talk me through this discovery of Bored Ape Yacht Club and why that struck you as something more.
Absolutely. So at the same time that we were interested in NBA Top Shot and participating and going deeper into the space, we were also noticing, and anyone who was in the space in late 2020 and early 2021 would have seen this, the CryptoPunks were starting to become really popular. Anyone who was anyone, it felt like, had a CryptoPunk as their avatar, and I did not. I've been chasing a punk for a long time, and but people were using NFTs. It was transitioning also into digital identity, and so folks would have their CryptoPunk as their PFP on Twitter or anywhere else, but they would like be themselves. So it would be me, a human with a CryptoPunk profile picture. And around that time, when we were starting to think about storytelling, like Safa was saying, we noticed that sort of longer form stories could potentially have like a space in sort of on the internet as digital assets. We were thinking that the right way to do that was to sort of do it character first. And so you would see punks and you would see that people would use them as their own profile pictures. And we started to think to ourselves, like, well, what if an NFT avatar wasn't one of us? What if it was its own thing? And there were a couple of things that made it hard about doing that with CryptoPunks. Two really like notable ones. The first is that the art is lower fidelity. And so the NFT images, like as default, don't like necessarily lend themselves super well to storytelling because they're pixelated. And the second is that Larva Labs had this interesting sort of commercial rights situation where up to like some level, you could monetize your CryptoPunk, but above maybe $100,000 or something, you needed to enter like a new commercial agreement with Larva Labs. And so we weren't like thoughtful enough to say at that point in time, like, oh, that commercial rights agreement will limit our creativity or something like that. But it did very much feel like you were playing, like you were building somebody else's brand for them. And Bored Apes changed everything. The art was higher fidelity. So all of a sudden there were all these NFT avatars that were out there that looked like they actually had personality. They had stories to tell. They knew things. They might see things. They would interact with each other. What is this like ape in an astronaut outfit doing with this one that like looks like a king from the 1800s? That looks like this one that looks like a valet, right? And all of them have some relationship to each other. And the other thing was that the commercial rights for the holder of the NFT are uncapped. So anything that you can do, any creative idea that you have is entirely yours. If you own the NFT, you own the rights to that IP, and you can do what you want with it. And so those things came together, and Saf and I looked at each other and we said, this is the opportunity. If we were ever going to build a character who could ultimately be a storyteller, it would be with a Bored Ape, because at that point in time, it was really revolutionary what Yuga Labs had done.
And it's really interesting because they built a community around it, And so therefore it was already a nascent media company, which some people saw, other people didn't understand at all. They're like, why the fuck have people got pictures of monkeys and why are they trading at such prices? And other people realized that because they had character and people wanted to identify in this kind of like-minded thing, a seed community is everything.
Yeah.
Had you guys hung out in that Bored Ape community? What was your thinking about that? Or was it just, we like this character, we can do something with this?
I think both. We originally, in addition to all the reasons that VJ mentioned, we were drawn to them because of the community aspect. And it was like, this is a time where like the founders would just be hanging out in Discord, like they would be super accessible, which is crazy to think about, right? Because they run a $4 billion business now. But yeah, they were just there. People would, if you bought one, people would DM you like just saying like ape noises. Welcome. It was just a whole thing. And so it still is obviously, but early days, it was like really special. And a lot of the earliest members are still some of the largest proponents, which is really cool. Like minters, right? Who are still holding, the majority of their apes. Some of them haven't sold any. So the community aspect was awesome. And I think that it was sort of the first NFT that really doubled as like membership to a club. And I thought that was sort of equally as revolutionary.
I say at the time, like the community, it's quite interesting, right? Because on community comes up in a number of different ways. On one hand, if you had an ape profile picture, hundreds of people would follow you right away. They would be in your DMs. They would be welcoming you. They would want to get to know you. There were folks who were posting where they lived. Safa and I, in some of the earliest days, just randomly met a bunch of apes in Brooklyn because that's what apes were doing. It wasn't like a commercial meeting. It was just a meeting to like get to know each other because we were all part of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. But on sort of the other end of the spectrum, people were creating things. And that's why we posted the first story as Jenkins, was not because, we'd been talking about this idea for a long time, but it was encouraged by the fact that there were dozens of other ape holders who were doing their own creative things. So it felt like an invitation for you to contribute back to the community in like any way that you thought of.
Why did you choose Jenkins? What was the idea? You see that because you got to buy an ape here.
Sure.
And the two of you got this crazy idea. You want to turn a character into something much bigger, long form storytelling.
Uh-huh.
Why Jenkins? Why not somebody else?
A fantastic question. Ape 1798 looks more like a valet than pretty much any ape I've ever seen looks like something else. And every ape is special. Every ape has a story to tell. Why does one ape have a baby's bonnet on and a kazoo in its mouth that he's probably been partying like way too long or something? But when we saw Ape 1798, we looked at him and almost immediately it just like screamed like valet, secret keeper, person who works the door, all of those things. And so for a couple people who are interested in storytelling and building a character, he stood out to us, Ape 1798, as one that you could do that with.
I just think the idea of the valet being the conduit for storytelling is genius, right? Because the valet is like the concierge. They're all seeing, they know everything, they get all of the secrets. And that little unlock creates almost everything. It really, really great idea.
That's what it was. And at first it was like, we're going to stop practicing discretion and share everything that we've seen at the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And that combined with this was happening at a time where the BAYC was just reaching like really peak sort of notoriety within the NFT space. The demand for a secret keeper and storyteller from that community rose. And we were just really fortunate to like fill that void.
And once you start now developing this idea and launch Jenkins, do you start reaching out to other people who are doing storytelling? Because, I met, for example, Timberland and what they're doing with Ape in Productions. And I'm like, well, here's something interesting because here's the storytellers and here's a bunch of apes doing something you can tell a story about. Have you started kind of thinking, okay, what's the broader, wider narrative here that you can go through?
Yeah. So back in May of 2021, when we told the first story, the Jenkins like origin story was very much an invitation for other people to reach out to us. So the idea is that Jenkins has this job. He's the head valet at the club. it's a really big deal that he got it. Like, it mattered a lot that he has the opportunity to serve in this role. And so because of that, he's trustworthy. He doesn't want to lose his job. He practices his discretion, and he basically does anything that any patron needs. So he sneaks non-members into the clubs through laundry carts. He holds private keys. He may or may not have like done a hit or two, depending on some drama that's going on. And because demand for the Bored Ape Yacht Club back in May of 2021 is starting to grow, Jenkins now has offers in his private messages to like write his tell-all, right? Someone wants to basically buy his secrets. And so the way that story ends is very much like an invitation for other people to help collaborate on like what are the secrets that Jenkins knows. And that invitation is the same exact thing that we're doing today in Tally Labs and in the writer's room and sort of all of the products that we're building. It's just grown from one character on Twitter to sort of like a bit more of like an ecosystem that we are trying to build. But after that first story, we just posted a form. And the form basically said, if you are an ape holder, odds are you've worked with Jenkins. Write in and tell us in a sentence or two about who your ape is and what they did with Jenkins. And we will turn around and we'll write like a story for you and we'll build IP around your character. And it blew us away how many apes wrote in and filled out this form. And as time went on, hundreds wrote in and gave us like this really fascinating creative. Like, they're robots sent back from the future. They are bankers who, have bought every crypto dip and like everything in between, heads of the mafia, Russian spies. Like, it was really unbelievable. And that showed us that whether you are, creative with your day job or you're just like a person who bought an ape who has some idea about what they can be, there are really interesting ways to contribute to like content and storytelling and all of those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to crowdsource characterization. It kind of saves you a lot of a job because you're given characterization from the ape holders and you can then pick and choose from that to think, how can I weave this in certain ways? So let's talk about Jenkins the Valet, that whole project, where you are now, what's going on, where you're going, and then the Tally Labs, in the broader context.
Yeah. We're laser focused on getting this book out for our community, which we're super excited about.
Talk to people about the book as well, because some people won't be aware of it, and I think this is great too.
For sure. We feel, and we hope, and our goal is for it to be sort of one of the first longer form content projects that originates in the NFT space that eventually can really transcend it and become something that's widely consumed. We put in, a New York Times bestseller in Neil Strauss to write it, which, was like the first step that we felt we really needed to take in order to give it the best chance to succeed. And then we've stacked some like other amazing collaborators around him. And so that book itself is going to be an amazing piece of art that has been created by an artist named MBSJQ, who's a top 20 grossing artist on Super Rare. The art itself will rotate as a custom beat created by Murda Beats, who's a Grammy-nominated producer, he's worked with Drake, Nicki Minaj, Future, Travis Scott, like some amazing folks. And so we have a creative house based out of Hiroshima, Japan, who's doing a Where's Jenkins, which is like our version of Where's Waldo, and it's like incredibly intricate. And so there's all these awesome collaborators involved. The plot was entirely voted on by the community. You sort of mentioned it prior, but the characters are all owned by members of the community. So in a lot of ways, it's like a really special and premium sort of like work that I think the whole NFT space will be able to rally behind and represent. And so our thought has always been, if you make content with your community rather than make something and then sell it to them, you never have to wonder if they're going to like it because they're involved from the beginning. And so we feel that it's created like just a much more organic connection between us and the community. So that book is coming out shortly. We're going to probably be releasing a date here in the next couple weeks. What you can do with that book is really sort of where the business goes from here. So we have a number of other properties that are coming out. Jenkins Audio Experience really positions Jenkins as the storyteller of the metaverse and allows us to move sort of horizontally between it. And so that is a partnership with a group called Salt Audio, who's an award-winning fiction podcast company, really, really high production. Like we call them essentially TV shows without visuals. And so each episode is going to feature Jenkins visiting another community, learning what makes it special, all through like a really exciting plot that we're pumped about. And again, the characters that appear in that will be owned by the community and licensed to us as well. So that's super exciting. And then where the journey sort of culminates is, one thing that we like to do is wrap business strategy in like creative and lore and take our community on a journey as the business grows. And so the journey will end in Azerbala, which is a world that we have spent the last 6+ months building in partnership with Emma Needell, who's a screenwriter who's actually has a film in Tribeca this year and has a movie on Netflix as well. She built this entire world with us, and our community will be able to mint avatars from that world. And so it's how we go from being a character inside of another universe to actually building the universe and getting to.
So this is your own metaverse experience, essentially.
I wouldn't call it a metaverse experience in the same way that a lot of like sort of metaverse experiences are coming to market now. It will be gamified shortly, but for us, our focus is like very tied into content and storytelling. And yes, like amazing games and video games and things like that are stories, but we're very focused on sort of like passive media, books, movies, podcasts, things like that. And so avatars who live in Azerbala will be characters sort of in every sense of the word. Holders will be able to name them, give them jobs, create formative events, do all of these things that they do that we have learned for like how you develop character. And then those characters will have an opportunity to sort of engage with each other and also be featured in like content that we produce. But we don't have a desire to try to build like our own metaverse with, because a lot of amazing and really smart and really like great companies and great people are building those things already. So we're more focused on staying like in our lane in that way.
And if the book works and you find the right audience, a broader audience than just the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT holders, then I guess the next stage is cartoon. I guess is that how you're thinking, that somehow to do something on a broader scale, whether it's cartoon or film or something of that sort?
Yeah, I would say that's the goal for sure. There's some other fun ways that I think we could leverage the IP. One of the benefits of being signed to a major talent agency, which we sort of glossed over, but we signed a CAA back in.
You glossed September. Over. It's a big thing. Yeah. So well done.
August. And it was cool. At the time, I don't know that any projects, let alone characters, had really signed to agencies.
But I just want to hear that story as well. How the hell did you convince them that a bunch of monkey JPEGs are IP for CAA to represent?
Yeah, we actually didn't have to do a ton of convincing, which was awesome to their credit. Like they really saw, I think, the potential and not just what we're doing, but the space in general, and then had sort of a task force like formed around it. And so we got connected to them through a mutual friend of ours, just for like a bit of a narrower scope, which was, hey, help us lock in an author and help us negotiate these deals, because we've never put out collaboration agreements to authors before. And so our original relationship was with the books department. And then from there, our team has grown to, brand partnerships, podcast, animation, film and TV, et cetera. So we have an awesome group of people that are working on this. But one of the benefits to that is we have a lot of data and we understand what makes a book a bestseller from a metric standpoint. We're going to bring this book to market as an NFT first. And so we won't be able to qualify through, at least at first, like New York Times bestseller approved channels like a Barnes & Noble or an Amazon. But our goal is to take a really successful NFT sale and then parlay that into something in the traditional publishing world by being able to essentially say, look what these guys did with a book or with an NFT. Let's bring this to market in a much bigger way.
And is there a way of, because it's going to be released digitally and not on traditional platforms, is there a way of getting informational value from how people interact with the book? You can kind of tell what they read, what they don't read, what they like, what they don't like, to give you some granularity that most people don't get.
100%, yes. There are a ton of things that you can do when a book comes to market as an NFT. We are building our own Web3 e-reader. So when you hold the book NFT, it will give you the ability to connect your wallet, or when you connect your wallet to a certain site, we'll be able to check that you have the NFT. And when you do, you'll sort of be provisioned access to read it. I mentioned there's a lot that you can do. We can see if you have any avatars in your wallet that also holds the book that appear in the work. We can highlight them by default. We can add them to your table of contents. You can, anytime you hover over a character name, every character in the book is an NFT. They all are tokens. You can see them on OpenSea. You can see additional information that people have created about them. You can highlight things and come back to them later. Like, we are really excited about that Web3 e-reader, because we think that a lot of the features that we are building, there's some secrets in there too, and some Easter eggs that we're excited for people to find that are sort of built off of the fact that everything is a token. And so one, it'll just be fun. And we think that the reading experience will be different than just sitting down and going from the first page to the last page. But yeah, 100%, we've got analytics events designed in basically every way that we can think of. And so we're going to have a lot of data about where people drop off, how fast they read things, which parts they highlight and like to share. And that type of information, I have to think, will be incredibly valuable to either a traditional publisher or anybody else who wants to build like offshoot content.
And so here's a question for you guys: is, I don't know if it's technologically possible yet, but surely a whole film can just be NFT'd. So as opposed to, it's essentially replaces Apple Plus, Apple TV Plus or whatever, because, you're an NFT holder, you buy it, and you own that NFT, you can then sell it on, etc. Is that where you think the world's going with this?
It's interesting because you brought up a point earlier that NFTs did something special on the internet, which is it introduced digital scarcity. And digital scarcity, I think, is sort of the opposite of what a company like Apple is trying to do with Apple TV, because they would probably love to sell us a subscription to every single person in the world. Whereas, of course, one of the key features of non-fungible tokens is that there's a limit. Whether that limit is 1 or 10,000 or 100,000, still the fact that there's a limit is useful. But I did see something interesting the other day. I think that OpenSea has done almost that OpenSea may have made more just from like net profits or something in the last year than Spotify. And that could be wrong, but I think that they are converging on each other. And so you have to ask yourself, and yet, the creator is making a significant royalty every time one of these things is traded. So you have to ask yourself, like, when will every creator turn to NFTs as an opportunity to monetize? And the OpenSea volume is just a fact of thinking about, like, look at this other way that doesn't run through a centralized entity, that still gives creators the opportunity to tell amazing stories, and actually, has value accrue back to all of the participants rather than like a centralized entity. And so 100% yes, we think that like the world is headed in this direction.
Yeah, I've been speaking to obviously Ben Mesrich as well about all of this, and he's done like you. Even early on in his journey, I was talking to him and I was like, "Do you understand the scale of what you're doing here? You're getting rid of book advances, you're getting rid of publishers, and then by the time you get it made for Netflix, let's say, you'll end up being able to fund it from the community. So you go to Netflix on the front foot, not after money, but after a deal." It kind of changes everything. And I guess you guys are seeing the same idea here, is that shared ownership of IP is incredibly powerful, because you can access the money from the community to drive forward the community.
Yeah, that's like that's sort of the thesis that we're building around, right? Is that content, not just from a distribution standpoint, from a creation standpoint, is best, when it's made by a group. And that, if we can build the right software and we can put, people from all over the world who don't know each other, who each have their own perspective, and can add that to what we're creating, together, essentially in like a virtual room, that like amazing stuff will emerge from it. And sort of like we said earlier, when you involve them from that step, the level of passion and engagement and excitement that they have for the end product is just so much different than if they're just sitting on their couch watching it and, you know, Apple sold it to them or something.
So let's talk a bit about your NFT community, because obviously you built this from NFTs from the ground up. So talk a bit about that ecosystem, and then we'll talk a bit about your community as well.
Yeah, at the moment, and this has been pretty intentional on our end. We talked about it in a town hall the other night. The only NFTs that we have on the market are writers' room NFTs. So there's 6,942 of them. The NFT space is growing fast, but I think there's been instances of projects who have outpaced the demand, like with their supply. So we've kept the community intentionally small up until now, but we're looking forward to welcoming new folks in organically. And so the first way that will happen is through this book drop. These books are going to be part of our ecosystem, much like the Writers Room NFTs. Existing holders will get to claim for free, as well as purchase another one on the whitelist if they so choose. We're also going to be welcoming a bunch of new folks in. And then from there, sort of organically and with a story-minded approach, the community and the portfolio of IP that's out in the market will expand, right? So in 3 to 4 months, we won't just have Writers Room NFTs, we'll have Writers Room NFTs, books, mint passes, which VJ, we know we've released what they're called, right? I'm not dropping the alpha. Okay. Aza Roots.
Good.
I always forget what we've said in public and what we haven't, but Aza Roots, Azurians. Yeah.
Yeah. The Aza Root, you know, Azurians and all of Azurbala, it's there's a scarce resource and it's called marrow. Everything runs on marrow. Every faction that exists within Azurbala cares about marrow. Even the monks, you know, in their Bible, they talk about marrow. And the way that marrow is created is that the Aza root, which is sort of a plant that's pulled from the ground, gets ground up and marrow is created from it. But there's a tradition around the birth of a new Azurian, where instead of turning an Aza root into marrow, you actually offer the Aza root to the Azurian gods as a tribute. You sort of forego making some money for the ability to bless your child. And so anyone who burns a book, a Bored and Dangerous NFT, the book we're writing with Neil, will be able to get an Aza root. And then those who have Aza roots can actually go to the monastery on azurbala.com and make the tribute of an Aza root to the gods in exchange for an Azurian avatar. And so, you know, Safa mentioned earlier that we like everything that we do as a business has a tie-in to like lore. That is certainly one of the examples of how we do that.
I mean, a lot of people will think you guys are fucking mad, because why would people want to do that? But, you know, I don't know if either of you have been to Marrakesh, but you go to the main marketplace, the Jamal Fanar in Marrakesh, and the storytellers are there, and they've been there for 2,000 years, and every night they tell stories. And the history of mankind is storytelling. That's why books and movies and television are such a powerful part of culture, because they're almost at the very core essence of what humans are. So, you know, if you step back and say, why do people care about Harry Potter movies or Disney? You know, why do adults care about cartoons? It just is. And it's
wired in. Absolutely. Yeah. And NFTs give you an opportunity to scale. Anybody can participate. We call our software, where people collaborate, the writer's room, on purpose, because writer's rooms are hard to break into. And right now, the way, you know, traditional, like mainstream storytelling works is a handful of people are sort of anointed to having the opportunity to tell these stories. And what we're aiming to do is to give anybody the opportunity to participate.
But talk me through that, because that sounds like an absolute nightmare of having 6,000 people all with an opinion of what you should be doing. Talk me through that experience of running that community and trying to get the ideas out of the writer's room, but filtering it down to what's necessary. You know, how does it all work?
There's one thing that we learned, which I don't know if we knew going in, was that there would be sort of an explicit impacting of the story from the writers, and then there would be like an implicit impacting of the story. And what we mean by that is the most explicit sort of way to impact is that votes are surfaced in the portal. We work directly with the community who submits proposals, as well as we work directly with the author.
Is this on Discord, or have you built your own portal?
We built our own portal. I think our thought was that trying to do this on Discord would make for a really poor experience. There would just be a lot
That's
of
what I was
voices. So
thinking.
we use Discord to speak like anecdotally with the community, and they can submit suggestions and we can talk about them. But the way things get inked into the story is through this platform. And so we work with the community to submit proposals. We work with the author if there's things that they typically ask of their subjects. You know, in the case of Neil, who's like a memoirist, there was a ton of questions that he was able to ask in the portal, and it's a voting mechanism. And so people can go in. Their voting power is weighted based on the writers room NFTs that they own, and they can vote for what they want to see happen in the story. And so the community, step by step, over the course of 30 plus questions that were made up of like world building as well as plot defining, we're able to explicitly impact the story. And what we mean by implicitly impact the story is, in addition to voting, they can also license their characters. And in doing so, they're prompted to create backstories for their characters: name, formative event, job, relationship at the yacht club, et cetera. And so all of, 60+% of people filled this prompt out, which is insane engagement. And each of those stories were read in detail by Neil, and actually implicitly sort of defined how he would speak about characters, how he would speak about the world, how he would reference things. So people out of their own creativity were able to put forth, a couple hundred words worth of writing. And in a lot of ways that actually made its way into the story too.
Amazing. So, okay, this is a pretty ambitious project. I mean, you're basically trying to recreate media from the inside out in a whole different way. And there's going to be a lot of experimentation. Not all of it's going to work. Some of it's going to be hopefully work amazingly. But what's the broader vision? What are you doing with Tally Labs? What is the whole thing? Because you're creating IP here. You've got a whole bunch of things. So talk me through the bigger vision now. It's
a phenomenal question. And when you say, we're trying to reimagine media, that's a big enough ambition that even hearing it sort of feels like a little paralyzing. And so, yes, like 100% we are. There's no denying that. But we also just take it one project at a time, and we work with,
Well, this is the difference of the old world. The old world were get budget, make huge movie or book,
right,
win or lose. But this, you do the opposite. You actually can iterate, test something. You don't have to go big or go home. You can just keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. And something that we say that we feel really passionately about is that we have the opportunity to iterate on content the same way we iterate on software. And so, the most amazing software products of the last 20 years have been built by shipping something small that solves a really particular use case, seeing how people use it, learning what works, learning what doesn't work, and making the next improvement. And we did that when we posted the first story as Jenkins on Twitter. We saw what was working, what wasn't, and then we kept sort of going in the direction. And the truth is, and we're super pumped about Bored and Dangerous, it is our most important piece of content that we have obviously made to date. But it's just round one, and there's a ton that isn't going to work. And we're really lucky to be supported by a community that I think believes that this is just round one, and that for as awesome as the book is going to be, there's going to be 10 times as many learnings for what to make, for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And so ultimately, our ambition, I think, is like twofold. We want to make like world-class content. We want to make stuff that exists, at the highest level, so that people can see that a group of folks from all around the world could come together to set the creative direction for stories that are like award-winning and that are well-known and that can transcend crypto and Web3 and just be like pieces of IP that anybody knows. And at the same time, we want to do that on this platform that we're building that we believe is the infrastructure to make that kind of thing possible. And ultimately, we want to give that platform to the space so that anybody can build on it as well, right? Like, and we think of ourselves as just being the people who are testing out this like decentralized content creation platform because we're using it ourselves. But certainly there are other people out there, and we know many of them, who are interested in doing similar things. And I think the old way was like, hey, we have this thing that we think might work. Let's keep it for ourselves. Why would we ever give it to other people who want to like do something similar? Because Web 2 is all about what I own. And if we own it, we value accrues to us. And if we don't own it, or if anybody else owns it, then we might lose. But Web 3 is all about like, how can we all work together to accrue value back to all of the participants. And obviously value accrues to us too, because we are going to be major participants. But the trick for us is like, as we learn with all of the things that we're making ourselves, how can we then also package it up to give it to other people to let them produce content as well?
Because, I mean, if you think through any media content, let's say wildlife programming, you know, like a Life on Earth style David Attenborough. Well, if you did that with a crowd and say, look, we want to do with jungles, let's say, and you've got various people, photographers, people who've shot film, people who know animals, biologists, all of these people can come together and participate in something to create something that's never been done before, as opposed to you need, you know, a director with a vision who we need to do this and we need to figure out where we're going to film. You don't do it that way. You do it the other way and ask a larger community of, if we were to make the best ever programming about jungles, you can get anthropologists, you can get all of these people to be part of the project. And that's huge.
And even you get, there are folks in our community, like I'm thinking about jungles. I know for a fact that Marcelino in our community is in Brazil, and there's this amazing jungle down there. And I have no idea if Marcelino lives near the Amazon or whatever, but I'm sure he knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who probably has a great idea. And that's unbelievable. That, like, you can go through real people who are interested in participating. And that makes it like a whole lot more fun.
Yeah, but even documentaries, let's say some good or bad event happened, okay, whatever it may be. Let's use randomly, I don't know why I thought about it, the volcano in Montserrat when half the island had to leave. Now, if you actually crowdsource the storytelling, you get the magic that's really hard to get, which is all these perspectives. What it meant for that family and that guy and that restaurant owner and that taxi driver and, you know, all of that stuff, because they participate. So of course they're actively encouraged to do so, and then spread the word when it's made.
Yeah, that part can't be understated as well. Like, in addition to having collaborators, like when we drop work, we have co-marketers. You know, we have thousands of people who are excited to share this with their network because they feel pride in it because of their involvement, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's just the whole thing is the unlock that's coming. Most people don't see it yet. They kind of think it's small scale. I'm not even sure whether stuff like the other side works, because not that many people want to be in gaming. I mean, I'm not particularly a gamer, but I love storytelling, and so does everybody. So I just think what you guys are doing is really interesting, and how you're approaching it of developing IP, thinking it as software as well, is a super interesting way of going about it, because you're just adding value on top of value, which, you know, I think is really powerful. And if you can then allow other people to use it, it's a really big thing.
Yeah, thank you. For us, it's about our community. I mean, the first Jenkins story was an invitation to the broader Web3 community to have an opportunity to tell stories about their characters. And all of the things that we're building today are just that same invitation for anybody who wants to participate to help. And in the ways that we learn how they want to participate, we think of new ideas for software that we should build. And so it's a dream to get to work with so many people in such a diverse group, because dozens of ideas come up every day. And to be sort of like today, to be like stewards of those ideas, and then ultimately to like give it all back and let anybody sort of build on it, I think is something that we feel could be like just a massive like honor and a really important thing to work on for our careers.
Out of interest, of your NFT holders, how many of them are Bored Ape holders?
Not many.
Yeah,
really?
we should pull that data. But when we first started, it was our following was largely Bored Ape holders, and since then it's become the opposite, because people view it as a much more cost-effective entry into sort of like a BAYC adjacent kind of ecosystem. And so we, around like the book, if a writer's room holder owned a Bored Ape, they could just license it. But if they owned a writer's room NFT but not a Bored Ape, they could go. We essentially built a flow where they could partner up with a Bored Ape holder and partner on the license. And VJ, I think those were the majority of the licensing partnerships were sort of between two
It
folks.
sounds like there's an obvious opportunity. I know somebody's doing it already, but an obvious adjacent opportunity. What you guys are doing are becoming the CAA of the NFT world.
Yeah, totally. And I don't, some folks have written about the writers' room and they have called us a talent agency. We don't think of ourselves that way, but one thing that we absolutely hang our hats on is that in our software platform, you can license your IP to creative works and you can license your IP to other individuals. Both of those are legal documents that we've worked on with IP Council and with Entertainment Council, and it is embedded into our software platform. So with just a few clicks, you can connect your wallet, show what avatars you have, and then get them licensed to like our work. And in that way, it's not the talent representation side of things, but it is the like connecting really interesting characters to really interesting stories. And we think that there's no reason, we are not planning on stopping that at any time.
Fascinating. So what's the next thing on the roadmap? The book, you're going to announce the date in the next couple of weeks when that's finally out. Anything else on the near-term roadmap that people should be expecting?
Yeah, it builds off of the book. Some other lore from Azerbala is that in the sprawls, reading is illegal. So anyone who holds a Bored and Dangerous book NFT will be able to burn it in the sprawls, because that's what happens if you bring a book there. And when you burn that book, you have an opportunity to then get an Azer root that you can take to get an Azurian and participate in the world of Azerbala. There's also more information that's going to be coming out soon about what happens if you stake that book and you get access to basically join a DAO that we view as sort of the future of decentralized content creation. And that DAO is going to look a bit different than a lot of the DAOs that have come before it, because we are super focused on finding the perfect way to pull the most amazing principles of what have made sort of decentralized entities and protocols really special in the world of like software and finance, and apply it to content creation, which is a bit of a tricky thing, but is what we're going to be bringing to market on that side of our roadmap 2.0.
Have you guys got some enormous whiteboard where you've got some big kind of spider flowchart of all of this? Because it's complex.
It's just Safa's brain, honestly.
That's not true.
Are you the guy who figures this all out, Safa? This whole kind of flow?
Not at all. It's all of us. We have a lot of Google Docs floating around. We had an incredible team offsite where we flew the whole team down to Miami and we whiteboarded out all of this, and everyone just left like really aligned and excited. And you make a good point though. One thing that we want to do a better job of is effectively communicating all of these things that we have going on, because there's quite a bit, and we've seen projects fall into that trap. And so we want to make it complex and for a certain level of consumer, but also digestible.
Yeah. And it was a bit of a rabbit hole for me just seeing you guys on Twitter and then trying to figure out what the hell you're up to, and then chatting to you and realizing, oh my God, this is a really serious, fascinating project. And it's amazing. Look, I wish you all the best with this. It's really super interesting.
Thank you.
And I think you're onto something really big.
Appreciate that. We have some Raoul fans in the Discord who I think when we tweeted at each other a couple months back, I think you had like tweeted something sort of complimentary, and we had a bunch of people in our Discord saying, "Oh my gosh, check this out!" Like posting the link and stuff. So I know that our community.
I think I'm going to buy one of the NFTs. I can't see how I can't, because I'm completely aligned with what you guys are doing. So I need to be in it.
And pop in the Discord for sure. But I think a lot of our members will be really excited that we came on and that they get to hear us talk. So thank you for having us. This is awesome.
Not at all. And be sure to check in. And we're going to figure out some other ways we can work together as well, because storytelling works across everywhere.
Totally. I know Jenkins has been dying to come talk to you as well. So we might have to get a conversation with the character too.
Yeah, I need to talk to Jenkins. I need to find out what's in his head, some of the secrets he knows.
For sure.
All right, guys, take care.
Bye.
Hey visionaries, thank you for tuning in. For more free crypto content like this, head over to realvision.com/crypto. You'll get early access to the most brilliant minds in the space to cut through the noise, get in-depth analysis, and get you ahead of the curve.